The Space Marines of Warhammer 40k are one of the most iconic things in the setting. Indeed, to many in the community, without Space Marines, there is no Warhammer 40k. And I'd be lying if I say they didn't at least have an argument. Yet Space Marines are not without their flaws. However, one thing that you have to give the Space Marines, especially the original 20 legions, all of them are unique in their own beautiful way. None are truly the same. Even something like the Imperial Fist and the Iron Warriors, who share the same MO, are totally different in their legion culture. And if you want really unique legions, one of the most, if not the most unique legion in just how different it is from all the others, is none other than the Night Lords. Ah yes, the spooky, scary bad boys often get the short end of the stick, known as cowards, murderers, weaklings, and basically just bad juju. Essentially, people like to take the piss out of them, because they're the least Space Marine-y of the Space Marines. And because of this, there's a bunch of misconceptions and memes thrown around that gets it all muddled up. But you may have heard both in-universe and out-of-universe people talking about the quote-unquote true Night Lord. But then that begs the question, what is it when people say they want true Night Lords? What is a true Night Lord? And more importantly, what is a fake Night Lord? Well, ladies and gents, today we're going to be answering that question as we take a look at 3 different Night Lords characters across the entirety of Warhammer 40k to find out and to answer what exactly is a true Night Lord. Without any further ado, ladies and gents, let's get cracking on with today's video. What? Oh, why am I covering this? Yes, now some of you may be surprised, for I am a salamander, and a salamander is to a Night Lord what fire is to ice. And I can imagine some of you saying, wait, hold on Brad, how can you cover them? They're literally the Legion library, you hate Night Lords, like what is this? And that's true, I do hate them. But need I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, in the grim darkness of the far future, hatred is a virtue, and the only person who knows more than a Night Lord about a Night Lord is a salamander. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hate your enemy, you must know your enemy. Well, kinda. If you know your enemies, sometimes you get to not hate them. That's the whole point, ignorance and all that in 40k. But if you get to know the Night Lords, you'll hate them even more. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, I hate the Night Lords. But in all seriousness, a rival legion story is so incredibly close to your own legion that you get to learn a lot about them involuntarily. And, well, I've recently been reading some Night Lord stuff, and everyone loves the Talos Valcoran book, so I'm like, you know what, let me put my hat in the ring. But do not worry, I shall not be spreading misinformation. I shall just be spreading hatred. Good, old-fashioned, pure and simple, cat-and-picked hatred. Ooh, yeah, baby. Right, now that's out the way, on to the Nightbat boys. So we're going to be starting off with a big one, vehemently disliked by the community, that being because of a certain passage in a certain book which we shall talk about. But I am speaking about none other than Gendor Skraivok, aka the Painted Count and basically the de facto leader of the Night Lords at this point. Not the sole leader, but he has the largest slice of the pie, which, yeah. Now, if you're wondering about my bemusement, that's because Gendor Skraivok is often described as the femboy Night Lord. Now, Brad, what the fuck do you mean? He's a Space Marine, how could he be a femboy? Well, that's just because of his interactions with a certain character, aka a demon. You see, at the end of the book The Lost and the Damned, he's lying there, broken, basically, and he calls out for the demon, and the demon pitches up, and the demon's like, yes, I'm going to do all sorts of things to you. I'm going to show you the meaning of pain for 666 years before literally sticking his tongue down his throat and literally going inside him. Like word for word, he physically transforms and is ingested by Skraivok unconsensually. That's weird, but I guess you could say, okay, horror element, yeah? Fair enough. But then we catch up with them in a later episode, and he's in the warp, sitting on his quote-unquote fluffy pink bed. Not fluffy pink bed. I'm not taking the piss out of that. That is what it's described as. And the demon is talking to him, and Skraivok is straight up just being a brat. Honest to God. Like, literally. Literally. Like, I'm not making it up. The whole playful, I'm not gonna listen to you stuff. Until the demon at the end has to stick his tongue down his throat again. And this is not like a short excerpt, mind you. This goes on for like 2 or 3 pages. And I'm like, yeah, what? Also, he wears makeup. I know people say it's war paint. No, take a look at the art. That is makeup. It's not like Celtic tattoos or like Assyrian war paint or anything like that. This is straight up just like clown makeup. So yeah, canon femboy Night Lord. I remember when my mate told me about this, I thought he was taking the piss. He then showed me the excerpt where they like kiss for like 2 scenes. Well, kiss is a very, very, very strong word there. That's doing some heavy lifting right there. But I didn't like 40k for a bit after that. Well, I mean that, I don't mean that literally, I still loved 40k, I was still in the setting, but it's like when you learn a canon event and you're just like, there's nothing for me, there's no headcanon here. This exists, and I have to deal with the consequences of it existing. I felt vulnerable. Like, I did not feel safe anymore. But the whole Space Marine femboy Night Lord thing aside, also Night Lords, they're the only legion to have a canonical femboy. And he's not even like a cool femboy, he's just a little bitch. But I should probably explain the actual story of Gendor Skraivok. Gendor Skraivok comes from House Skraivok, a noble house in the world of Nostromo. And growing up, he was a psychopathic killer. Literally, he would hunt the poor for sport. However, the poor didn't give him enough edge, so eventually he went to his fellow nobles. He did whatever he wanted, however he wanted, and somehow he was chosen to become a Night Lord. Kurze really should have learnt a thing or two from Gilliman and done some oversight. But he becomes a Night Lord, and eventually he rises to the rank of a line captain. And here we find out he was one of the prime instigators behind the bullshit on Nostromo. He worked with his aliases and contacts in the other noble houses to undermine Kurze's authority, and he was the one who led the way for people to introduce killers and murderers, people who Kurze specifically did not want to his legion, into it, with his company essentially being made up of psychopathic killers loyal only to him, not the legion, not Kurze, not the Emperor, to Gendor Skraivok, the Painted Count. And eventually he would learn about Nostromo's rebellion, and he would keep it to himself. This guy is literally the worst betrayed dude ever to ever exist. He's terrible. Like, I know we call Khan the betrayer, but he had one incident, bro. This guy has like a laundry list of a rap sheet. He would even go on to murder one of his fellow captains, and eventually he would end up with a demon blade. Thing is though, he didn't want this demon blade. He wanted anything but it, and he tried to get rid of it. He tried to burn it, he tried to eject it into space, he left it away, but it always found its way back to him, until eventually he would be found wanting, and in a moment of desperation, he would need this blade to save his life. So he said, okay, alright, I accept. And just like that, he accepted the demon blade that he'd been trying to get rid of for like weeks or months at that point. He would then take this blade, and he would eventually, through ranks and means, become the Night Lord's de facto leader. Because as much as a bitch he was a high-ranking and influential member of the Night Lords. And with no Kurze and no Sevatar, and the Night Lords not really having a hierarchy of any reasonable logical means, he was able to get to the top. Horus would acknowledge him as the de facto leader of the Night Lords, and he would be named Lord Commander. And he would lead the Night Lords in the Assault on Terra, where he would come face to face with Mr. Raldoron, the first captain of the Blood Angels. And he would engage in a duel with him, which went a very interesting way. Taken from Lost and the Damned. The first Blood Angel he encountered died so easily, Skraivok barely felt the ceramite part. The sword shifted in his hands as he swung, perfecting the strike. The edge cleaved through the warrior's helm, cutting it in half, and passing deep into his torso. A lesser blade would have stuck, but not his sword. He pulled it out with a light tug, easy as plucking a blade of grass. Skraivok smiled to himself. Power flooded him. His body tingled with it. "Blood Angel!" he shouted. His Terminator pushed aside the combatants, clearing him a path. "Blood Angel!" The ramparts were broad, but crammed with fighters. The fighting was close and dirty work. There was little room for finesse. Another Blood Angel dialed to Skraivok's blows. The Atramentar laid about themselves, the booming of their power fists and the roar of their heavier weapons drawing the attention of one of the Blood Angel's ancients. It crushed the Space Marine that was fighting, and threw down the leaking body. Bullets sprayed from its rotary cannon. One of the Atramentar was hit hundreds of times. The cannon overloaded his field generator, chewed through his layered ceramite and plasteel, and tore into the adamantine frame beneath. The man died inside his giant suit and fell over heavily.
"Deal with that for me, would you, Sergeant?"
said Skraivok.
"I do not wish to be distracted. I will have that captain's skin for my cloak. Our role is to protect the leader of—" "Do it!" shrieked Skraivok. "Bring it down."
The sergeant said no more, but moved with his men to engage the dreadnought. Skraivok pushed on. The lines of the two warring legions were by now thoroughly blended. Bodies clogged the rampart. Footing was treacherous, but the enemy captain was near.
"Blood Angel!"
Skraivok yelled joyfully.
"Face me!"
The Blood Angel finished his opponent and turned to face the Night Lord. Upon his left pauldron, his name was emblazoned upon a scroll plate, just legible under rivulets of blood.
"Raldaron?"
said Skraivok.
"The Raldaron."
He made a few passes with his sword, reveling in its lightness, its killing edge.
"This will be a day to celebrate. The day I slew the hero of the Blood Angels."
He saluted and declared pompously,
"I am Gendor Skraivok, the Painted Count, Lord Commander of the Night Lord's Legion, and I am your end."
The Blood Angel was unimpressed. "Never heard of you," he said, and came into attack, his power sword buzzing. Skraivok laughed and parried. The demon sword moved with a mind of its own to block the blow so fast. Raldaron was almost taken down by Skraivok's riposte, only a wild slicing deflection turning it aside. The second strike was thus deflected by Raldaron, and a third. The first captain of the Blood Angels was as good as his reputation suggested, but Skraivok was filled with sorcerer's foreknowledge and supernatural speed. He saw an opening and moved in for the kill. He missed. He was too slow. Raldaron sidestepped the blow and twisted it aside with a slight flick of his blade. Skraivok stepped back. The delicious feeling of power was gone. The world had lost its sheen. He was in the rain, on the wall, surrounded by dead, and he could not beat this man. Panic gripped Skraivok's gut. The blade was heavy. It would not respond as it had, where before it accentuated his skills, lending him greater strength and speed. Now, it did nothing. Raldaron pressed his attack, battering at Skraivok with a flurry of blows that he could barely deflect. The demon had deserted him.
"No," said Skraivok. "It cannot be."
Raldaron's power sword banged against the edge of Skraivok's blade, sending him stumbling backwards.
"That always was the problem with your Legion, Night Lord," said Raldaron. "You are quick with your torturer's knives, but so few of you are worthy warriors."
Raldaron swung his sword overarm, building momentum into a blow that would cut a powered armor figure in two. Skraivok parried it only just in time, stepping back and nearly tripping on the corpse of a Night Lord. Raldaron followed with another blow, and another. Skraivok struggled to stop him. He was so fast. Skraivok was a Space Marine captain, and a more than passable swordsman, but Raldaron was a hero of the Imperium whose name was known across the galaxy. Raldaron attacked with greater ferocity. Skraivok's arm was numb from deflecting the blows. He forwarded a few attacks, but they put him in more danger, as Raldaron caught and countered every one. His latest riposte was turned away, and Raldaron's power blade stripped sparks up the side of his breastplate.
"Atramentar!"
Skraivok called, his panic rising.
"To me!"
If they heard him, they could do nothing. They fought the Blood Angel's dreadnought still, their number reduced to 3.
"Night Lords, help me!"
His power pack scraped up on Rock Creek. He had his back to the outer crenellations and could retreat no further. Raldaron faced him. His sword energy buzzed in the downpour.
"Listen to you,"
Raldaron said.
the masters of fear, and you are cowards, like all cruel men.
Raldoron's power sword slashed across Skravok's chest, breaking open the ceramite and severing his power cabling. The painted count staggered, unbalanced by the sudden loss of energy to his warplate systems. Raldoron lunged forwards, stunning Skravok further with a blow to the face from the punch guard of his sword. Cracks grazed over Skravok's eye lenses. His faceplate systems fizzed and broke down into a display of meaningless blocks. He feebly attempted to parry, but Raldoron smashed it aside and turned the blade downwards, his own sword cutting deep into Skravok's greave, cleaving through ceramite, undersuit, and flesh, and sliding into the bone. Skravok staggered to the side, slipped and fell backwards into the chute of a crenel, a wedge-shaped gap between merlons. The crenel sloped down and narrowed towards the edge. Skravok scrabbled at the smooth, polished plascrete of the surface, and succeeded only in making himself slide towards the killing drop. A red boot on his wounded leg pinned him in place. Skraivok cried out in pain. Raldoron leaned forwards to address him. "You are, and always were, an evil legion. You took the Emperor's mission and twisted it. Selfish, monstrous, tormentors of the weak. If Horus had not turned, I would have gladly led the hunt for your kind myself. I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you came to my sword and saved me the trouble of looking." He shifted the weight of his foot, bringing another cry from Skraivok. "Wait!" the painted count said. "I give you my surrender. You beat me. I am your prisoner."
"There can be no prisoners in this war,"
said Raldoron.
"How much mercy have you shown to all those you have harmed? I have as much mercy for you as you had for them. Now, get off my wall."
He shoved hard with his foot, sending Skraivok skidding towards the drop. From here, the painted count will take a little tumble, and then another little tumble, and then another little tumble, and then another little tumble, until eventually he had taken a very big tumble, and landed plumb in the mud, amidst the broken, dying, and battered remains of Nightlord, Blood Angel, and Bastion Wall, where he would be dying, until the demon would pitch up. The demon would then say this was a lesson to teach Skraivok, and if he had just obeyed, everything would be fine. So, did he want him to save him? Did he want power beyond power? All he had to do was simply submit. Skraivok, begging, crying, and pleading like the little bitch he is, accepts. And then of course we get the whole war scene with him and the demon. Now many people begin to question exactly what demon this is, but considering how the demon is like, I'm gonna torment you for 666 years, and you know, the whole war fetish thing, I would be very, very, very surprised if this one's Sineshi based, because this tracks a lot. But now let's talk about Gendor Skraivok, the Painted Count. The Painted Count is, in my opinion, the worst definition of a Night Lord, and because of that, he fits one actually. That being a failure of a Night Lord. Kurze was known for not loving his legion, but it's not because of what they did, but rather why they did it. Raldoron put it very well. The Night Lords twisted the Emperor's vision, his purpose, and they were supposed to be terror troops, you know? The secret silent bad guys who you send in to tell people to stop fucking about. Unnecessary evil. Because as much as we like to talk about the goodness and the greatness and, you know, all the lovely stuff in Warhammer and what it means to truly be human and the Emperor's Imperium and all that nonsense, at the end of the day, every single country, every single government, every single nation state that has existed has some demons. Demons that they keep only when they are needed. And I believe that's what the Emperor intended the Night Lords to be. the boogeyman to keep worlds from rebelling. But eventually, because Kurze wasn't well-rounded, he had no concept of logistics or management or anything like that, and he just left his planet to its own devices. He didn't keep tabs. So instead of getting sort of noble evil, I want to say, but noble is a very choice word to use here. Let's just say they weren't psychopathic murderous bastards who enjoyed the sound of screams because it made them hard. That's what Kurze wanted. Folks like him, doing what was necessary. Instead, he got folks like the Painted Count, the worst scum of the earth, elevated to demigods. And Skraivok truly is a failure of not only a space marine, because he's the one of the very few accounts we get of a space marine feeling legitimate fear multiple times. But he's also the failure in the sense of a Night Lord, because he accepted help from a demon. True Night Lords hate demons. They hate the idea of having to rely on someone. They hate the idea of being submitted to someone else's will, of being a lapdog, be it to Emperor or to God of Chaos. So the fact that Skraivok not only accepted this help, but he only accepted this help after it had pestered him, after he knew what was going to happen, and after he nearly died. Twice, mind you. Gendor Skraivok is a true failure, a true degradation of the Night Lord's Legion. And the fact that in the modern day and age he holds the most sway of the Night Lords goes to show just how truly far the Legion has fallen, when you compare to what Kurze wanted them to be. Gendor Skraivok is an interesting character. Whilst me personally, I don't hate the idea of a sort of sycophanty, schemy, bitchy Night Lord, I think some elements of him tend to go a little bit overboard. Of course, that could just be my hatred of femboys rising to the surface yet again. God bloody damn it, who on the internet said that you guys were known for wearing thigh highs. But I do believe he is a good part of the Night Lord's Legion to show just how far they have fallen, in every single aspect. Gendor Skraivok is a coward, a weakling. He stands for nothing. Literally nothing. He himself has nothing. He has no morals, he has no principles, he has no code. He's just someone who does whatever. He's a lapdog. So long as he's living, he's fine. And that's a failure of not only a space marine, but a Night Lord. But from the girl failure Night Lord that is Gendor Skraivok, let's take a look at the Ultra Chad who many people consider to be the best Night Lord. Talos Valcoran. Right, you know who Talos is, I know who Talos is, everyone knows who Talos is. Go and read the Night Lord's trilogy. Pretty good trilogy, take a crack at it yourself. I still need to finish it, mind you, but that's because I have a billion books to read and I have decision paralysis because ADHD go burr. But when you hear people talking about a true Night Lord or a good Night Lord, this is what you point to. Talos is a Night Lord, by every stretch of the imagination. He is willing to do some crazy shit, he's willing to do some heinous shit, but he does it for the right reason. But in case you're wondering about who Talos is, Talos Valcoran, known as the Soul Hunter, because Kurze would give him a prophecy that he would hunt one soul unto eternity. And he was also known for killing the assassin who killed Kurze, because despite what Daddy said, Talos wanted vengeance. He also had the gift of foresight, something that he inherited from his father. Essentially, over the course of 3 books, he would try and restore the Night Lords back to some measure of strength. And he'd be involved with Eldar, the Red Corsairs, Abaddon himself. However, he eventually would meet his end by the hands of Jane Zar, being impaled by her spear but not before mortally wounding her with a grenade. Before Valcoran, I heard bolt of fire, Dreadnought pulled up and gave her the old squish squish cockroach treatment. Super TLDR, but go and read the books, there's a billion other videos about him. But Talos wanted one thing from his legion. He wanted strength. He didn't want to serve the Emperor, he didn't want to serve Chaos. He wasn't a good man, he was a man out for himself and for his legion. Talos wanted his legion to be feared. He wanted his legion to be strong. He wanted his legion to be able to stand on its own 2 feet for their brand of justice. Not one dictated by the Lex Imperialis or by the edicts of the Chaos Gods, but by one dictated by the Lords of Night. And I think that's why many people consider him to be the best Night Lord. He has something he stands for. And right up until his very death, he is a consistent character. He knows what he wants. And what he wants is to be strong on his own terms. Unlike many other Chaos Lords, when presented with the chance to get power from Chaos, he declines it outright. because he's a Night Lord. He serves no master but the night, even when he is tempted by all 4 Chaos Gods. So super quick TLDR, Talos ends up getting into a scrap with Abaddon, because Abaddon wants him to join. He's like, no, I don't want to. He ends up getting poisoned. And while he's in this pseudo weird fugue state nonsense, he ends up getting tempted by the Chaos Gods, one representative from each of the 4. And it really goes a long way to show the true character of Talos. Taken from Soul Hunter. Talos opened his eyes to nothingness, to one who saw through pitch darkness as naturally as a mortal man saw in daylight. This was both unwelcome and unfamiliar. He turned, still seeing nothing, unsure if this was because there was nothing to see in the blackness, or if he had lost his sight. It occurred to him with no small amusement that he'd inflicted this very fate on so many mortals over the years, forcing them to awaken in darkness of the Covenant's interior. A cautious smile spread across his lips as he enjoyed the irony. The air was cold on his flesh. Flesh? At the first hints of the sensation, he could see himself now, his hands before his face, bone white and blue-veined, and his tunic of dark weave. He was out of his battle plate. How could this be? Had his wound been so terrible that First Claw had cut him from his armor and... wait. His wound. His pale hands pulled open the front of his robe, baring his chest to the darkness. His torso, a pale sculpted echo of ancient Romani marble statues of their warlike gods, was unbroken by any wound. Across his sternum were the junction plugs and connection sockets required to link into the power systems of his armor, and he could make out the hard shell of the black carapace implanted beneath his skin, forming the subdermal armor that sheathed his form in additional protection and allowed him to interface with his battle plate senses. But no wound. Talos. A voice spoke from the blackness. He turned to meet it, hands reaching for weapons that didn't exist here, wherever he was. The speaker was a Night Lord. Talos recognized the armor instantly, for it was his own. In the nothingness, he faced himself, staring at his armored image with something approaching fury.
What madness is this?
A test, his reflection said, removing his helm. The face beneath the helmet was, and was not, his own visage. Eyes of silver stared back at him, and the center of his forehead was branded with a stylized rune of sickening devotion. The burn mark was still fresh, still trickling blood down his reflection's face.
You are not me,
Talos said.
I would never wear the slave mark of the ruinous powers.
I am what you might be. His image smiled, revealing teeth as silver as his eyes. If you were bold enough to unlock your potential. And if you will not hear this offer from me, you will hear it from my allies. The War Master's words came back to him now, trickling into his consciousness as the blood trickled in his reflection's alien eyes.
You are not of the ruinous powers, he said to the image before him. You are not a god.
Am I not? It replied, smiling indulgently.
No god would be so brazen, so unsubtle. You would turn your eyes upon one soul. Never.
I turn my eyes to 1 trillion souls with each passing moment. It is the nature of a god to exist in such a way. An ugly thought clawed up its way from Talos's doubts to reach his lips.
Am I dead?
No. The god smiled again. Though you were wounded in the will of the flesh.
Then this is the warp? You have taken my spirit from my body.
Be silent. The others come. He was right. Other figures manifested about him. One behind, one to the left, one to the right, taking the cardinal points around him where he stood in the darkness. He couldn't focus upon them. Each time he turned, he saw nothing, except the others existing at the edges of his vision.
"This," said the first figure, "is what I offer you."
He reached out a gauntleted hand to Talos.
"You are keen of mind and great vision. You know your armies of godsons will fail without true gods to lead them. Your flesh gods have fallen, your fathers are slain. You are godless, and in godlessness lies defeat."
"Touch me and die," the Astartes warned. "Mark my words, false god. If you touch me, you will die."
"I am Slaaneth, the one who thirsts. I am a god, more than your gene father ever was. And this,"
the figure repeated,
"is what I offer you."
Prince Talos. His troops were shouting up at him. Prince Talos. No, not shouting, worshipping. They bowed and cried and prayed for his attention. "This is wrong," Talos growled. "The Night Haunter was never exalted above us as a perfect immortal being. He was moribund and cursed, stronger for all the trials and agonies he endured. This," he finished, turning from Slaaneth, "is not how he lived. It is not how I will live either." "Kyrion." The figure smiled. Talos hadn't ever smiled like that in his life. "What of him?" The Astartes narrowed his black eyes, instinctively reaching for weapons that weren't there. "His soul has felt my caress. Your brother hears the fears of every living thing. My gift to him." "He resists." "On the surface, he resists. The parts of his mind that shout silently relish the sounds of weeping souls. He feeds on fear. He enjoys what he senses." "You are lying," Talos said, but his broken conviction was evident in the growl. "Be gone." The first figure faded with a laugh, unseen by Talos, who now stared at the second. He wasn't surprised to see another image of a Night Lord, his own armor facing him once more. Talos felt a smile creeping across his lips at the sight. It was his armor laid bare, the cannibalism and repairs left unpainted and visible to the naked eye. His chestplate was still the deep blue of the Ultramarines, the armor of his leg was the royal yellow of the Imperial Fists, and the thigh guard attached was the gunmetal grey of the crippled Steel Confessors chapter. A Harlequin's display of colors and allegiances made up the figure's warplate. But Talos lost himself in the memories of where and when each piece was taken. Most he'd not even thought about for years, decades even. The shoulder guard ripped from the corpse of a Crimson Fist veteran was a particular pleasant recollection. They'd fought hand to hand, an uncomplicated brawl of fury against fury, gauntlets pounding cracks in each other's armor, until Talos had managed to crush the other warrior's windpipe. Once the little Astartes was strangled into unconsciousness, Talos had broken his spine and smashed its skull open against the hull of First Claw's waiting Land Raider. With the Imperial Fist finally dead, the Night Lord let his body fall to the ground. Strange how the centuries were affecting his memory. He believed once that his recollection was almost eidetic. Now, he'd realized he'd forgotten the most ferocious 3 minutes of fighting his entire life. The second figure removed his helm, showing a face that mirrored his own, but for a curving symbol tattooed on its pale cheek. "You know me," the second figure said, and it was right. Talos did know. He recognized the faintly patronizing cadence in the man's speech, the sickly sweet scent rising from his armor, The same smell emanated from the Exalted.
"You are the shaper of fate,"
Talos said.
"Vantred is one of your slaves."
The figure nodded, his black eyes a perfect image of Talos' own. "He is one of mine, a champion of my cause, a beneficiary of my gifts, not a slave. His will is his own."
"I believe differently."
"Believe what you will. He is of some value to me. You, however, could be so much more."
"I have no interest in power."
Talos relaxed into the command throne, letting his thoughts drift into the affinity of what was yet to come, feeling the skeins of fate like 1,000 threads under his fingertips. Each strand led to a possible future that played out before his eyes. If he merely concentrated for a single moment, the future is unwritten. He took a breath, feeling naked without his armor, and swallowing the rising urge to slay these apparitions before him.
"I am a seer, and I know the path of the future is darkened by choices yet unmade."
His reflection in its salvaged armor shook his head. "I can offer you the secret sight any mortal must have in order to pierce the mists."
"My second sight is pure."
Talos spat on the chestplate of the patchwork armor, where, much to his discomfort, the Imperial Eagle still shone undefiled.
"Yours is the bane of sanity. Leave."
He turned to the third, aware of a buzzing sound that felt almost tactile. Crawling against his skin, flies covered the arm of the third figure, fat and blood red. Through patches of occasional blue shone through the insect vermin as they swarmed over the armor's surface in a rippling random tide. The figure wore no helm. His face was his own, blighted by swollen sores and infected cuts, through cracked lips which bled a thin orange fluid. The figure shook its head and spoke with the voice of a grunting, drowning beast.
"I was summoned here,"
it said,
"but you will never be one of my champions, and I have no use for you, and you have no will to wield the power I offer."
Talos fixed on the first point of cohesion in all this foolish madness.
"Who summoned you?"
"One of your kind wove his pleas into unspace for a flicker of my attention. A magus, begging into the warp."
"An Astartes? A Night Lord? A human?"
The figure faded, taking its rank stench into oblivion as it went.
"Who summoned you?"
Talos cried into the darkness. When silence was the only reply, he turned to the fourth and final figure, the act of facing it, bringing it into being. The last figure showed the greatest deviation from Talos' own image, and that alone set the Night Lord's lip into a disrespectful sneer. This figure, unlike the others, was in motion. As if unable to remain still, it swayed from foot to foot, hunched over akin to a beast ready to leap, breathing rasping from its helmet's vox speakers. The armor itself was red, the red of a body's darkest blood, edged in bronze so filthy it looked as dull as worthless copper. It was still his armor, but lacking his familiar trophies, and sporting fresh metal damage, as well as the repainted surfaces and bronze modifications, made it an unnerving sight. Seeing his most treasured possession so twisted.
"Make this good,"
he said, teeth clenched. The figure reached up, removing its helm with shaking hands. Its face was a mess of scars, burns, and bionics, framing a malevolent grin.
"I am Karnath,"
it grunted through a toothy smile. "I know that name."
Yes, your brother Uzas cries it as he takes skulls for my throne.
He is one of your slaves? Talos couldn't tear his eyes from seeing his own face so damaged. Half of the head was replaced by oil-smeared bionic plating fused with raw inflamed skin at the edges. The flesh that remained was blistered and uneven from burn scarring, or darkened by badly sealed cuts from what must have been horrendous blows to offset the enhanced healing of Astartes' physiology. Most unnerving of all was the way he swayed, hunched over and ape-like, with the same dead-eyed grin Uzas wore when trying to maintain his attention on difficult conversation.
Blood.
It wheezed.
And souls. Blood for the blood god. Souls for the soul eater.
Is Uzas your slave?
Answer me. Not yet. Soon he will stand as a champion amongst my warriors. But now, not yet.
Whoever summoned you to win me to your allegiance has wasted their time. This is almost laughable.
Time is short.
The figure still grinned.
And such sights have I to show you.
Talos had more insults to offer, more rejections to voice, but he found he couldn't speak. His lungs locked, feeling like slabs of quivering stone behind his fused ribs. It was a savage echo of the moment he'd been poisoned, and he felt the same sensation as the meat within his body shuddered, stealing his breath. This time as he fell to his knees, his breathless wheezes weren't curses, but laughter. The warrior blood was fading. Talos knew in the world of flesh, his lungs were purging the taint that brought him here.
Witness my gifts,
Kanath said, desperate now, ferocious in his eagerness.
See the strength I offer. Do not abandon this one chance. Go back to hell.
The Night Lord grinned through bloody teeth and vomited black mist into the nothingness. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why people believe that Mr. Talos Valcoran is the greatest Night Lord. Talos acknowledges everything about the Night Lords. He acknowledges that they're not good people. They've committed crimes, they've committed evil, they've tormented, they've hurt, they've been cruel. But in the same vein, he acknowledges that there is strength in their actions. Talos could be argued to be a tragic character, and I would somewhat agree with this. But with Talos, he knows that this is what he is now. There's no point in trying to backtrack on this. With Talos, he knows what he wants to be. He wants to be what his father wanted to be, what the Night Haunter wanted to be, or rather I should say, what Conrad Kurze wanted to be. A man who did black things, but for the right reasons. Strength. The Night Lords were meant to be strength. And that is ultimately what the Night Lords want to be. And I have a lot of respect for Talos here, because he's not trying to put out his vision for what the Night Lords wanted to be. Talos wanted to be a hero, but that's not what the Night Lords are. He respects his father. He respects what the Night Lords are supposed to be. He is part of the Night Lords Legion. And unlike so many other Night Lords, he's not trying to be himself. He's not trying to do this because he wants it. He acknowledges what he is. And he wants the Night Lords, plural. He wants them to be strong. He wants them to be mighty. He wants them to be great. But not through the means of chaos. Not through blind devotion. Not through anything like that. He doesn't want them on a pedestal as heroes. He wants them to be what they were meant to be. A necessary evil. That is what he wants. And that is what he will do without the Corpse Emperor and without the Gods of Chaos. For he is a Night Lord, and he succeeds on no strength but his own. But now, ladies and gents, let's move over from the Night Lord everyone knows about to a Night Lord that very few of you will know, unless you watched my last video, that is. Let's take a look at the Prince of Thorns, Amon Kul. So this one is going to be super uber short. I have a whole video talking about the Prince of Thorns and where he comes from. Well, kinda. The Prince of Thorns was the main villain introduced in the book Red Tithe. I did a whole pseudo review about it. Go and check it out, pretty solid. But I adore the Prince of Thorns because he's a Night Lord. He's an evil bastard, don't get me wrong. He likes, murder and cruelty and skinning and all that, but he has principles. He's a relatively new Night Lord, but he wants the Night Lords to be something. He knows what he wants and he's willing to act upon it. Like, don't get me wrong, you're not going to want to join him, but you can respect him, which is very important for a villain. So, like I said, I'm not going to go over that. The whole video is linked, go and check it out. But basically, the TLDR is thus. He, together with a Chaos Sorcerer, Night Lord also known as the Flayed Father, whom they hate each other by the way, because the Prince of Thorns is New Age, let's go and do this, let's become the new Night Lords, better Night Lords, and the Flayed Father is old school, very old, long one nonsense, and he's given into demons, which is a pretty big no-no when it comes to the Night Lords. And they're fighting against the Space Sharks, and the Night Lords has yoinkied this young Psyker, who he wants to use as a demon host for his patron demon. And the kid is scared, but then, funnily enough, of all people, it's the Prince of Thorns who decides to come and say something to him. And it's really interesting because we gain an insight into what he's like and how he really thinks. Taken from Red Tithe. Skell sat in the midst of patterns of blood and chalk, his head in his hands, and wept. The thing in his skull was enjoying it. The demon's cackles rose above his own thoughts, drowning them out, causing his sobs to grow louder and more uncontrolled. He could taste the salty bitterness of the tears on his lips, and the vile dirt they tracked through. He could taste blood too. The demon was taunting him.
My name is Parkul. We shall be getting to know one another very well indeed. Mikadoren Skell.
If you don't say anything, it will enjoy it less. Skell's head shot up. Through his blurred vision, he saw a leering skull poised mere feet from his face, eyes glaring red from its sockets. He sprang back with a cry, almost disturbing the fresh markings the sorcerer had daubed on the floor around him. Your fear is amusing for skill, child, the nightmarish giant said. Behind it, two of its brothers were wheeling in a gleaming surgical rack from the Medicaid bay, leaving it at the edge of the pentagram. The one that had spoken to him was kneeling, so its gaze was level with Skell's. As the boy stared up in terror at the visage that haunted his nightmares, it reached up with spiked gauntlets. There was a thud of locks, and the helmet came off in its grasp. Skell found himself looking into black eyes, framed by alabaster skin, and a shock of jet hair. His face was the last thing Skell had expected. It was young. It smiled, revealing metal teeth, etched to wicked points. The boy shuddered. I was like you once, it said. Not so very long ago, torn apart by guilt and fear. But the galaxy has a strange way of righting wrongs. The parents who adopted me spent their lives living off the same class of people they had plucked me from. When I was your age, I lowered the shield protecting their home and let my future brothers slaughter them. The galaxy rewarded the way I had righted that wrong. It elevated me.
Do not listen to him,
snarled the voice in Skell's head.
It was by my will that he was raised up, no others.
Skell moaned. The kneeling giant went on. You see these things? He gestured up at the darkest corners of the Centrum Dominus. They were filled with rustling, clicking shapes. Skell caught an impression of bat-like wings, slavering maws and eyes that burned with pale blue warp fire. He flinched away, looking back down at the bloody inscriptions at his feet. These things are not worthy of your veneration, the giant told him.
He lies,
the voice in his head spat. These things are nothing more substantial than your thoughts and whims. The 8th Legion has never served them, and it never will.
All will serve the true glory of Chaos Skell. I will show you that soon enough.
Remember this night, my child. My name is Kul, Prince of Thorns. Your prince. You are a part of the 8th Legion. We are beholden to no one, mortal or immortal. The galaxy is a sea of victims, and we are the predators. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Kul. He is a predator in the darkness, though, to be fair, I think Gendor Skraivok should be saying that part. But jokes aside, taking a look at the Night Lords, I was very surprised with Kul. I'm used to Night Lords just being pretty one-dimensional, to be honest. They're evil bastards, and don't get me wrong, Kul is definitely an evil bastard, but there's a reason for his evilness. He didn't just wake up and be evil one day. He turned on his parents who had adopted him only because they were nobles who were mistreating the lower classes where he came from. Instead of feeling gratitude that they had saved him, he felt hatred that they were doing this to his people. In the end, the idea is somewhat noble, dare I use that word again, but the means by which it was accomplished is definitely evil. Kul is one of my favorite characters in 40k. I know that's a very big stretch, considering he's literally in one book and I'm a salamander, but I love what he means for the Night Lords. He is a Night Lord. There is something there about him, this strength, be it of character or of will, that you admire, but that doesn't change the fact that he skins people alive for a living. He's an evil bastard, but he's not someone that you love to hate. He's no Gendor Skraivok. And in the same vein, he's not a Talos Valcoran. Talos, for all his flaws, he tries to be something other than just an evil murderer. He definitely does some evil and does some murdering, but he wanted to be something more. He strives for something greater. Kul, though, he wants his own power, but he wants it the way a Night Lord wants it. He is a Night Lord. He is part of the 8th Legion. And to come to the end of this topic, and to finally answer the question, what is a true Night Lord? I think Kul answers that quite well. Because with Kul, he is a Night Lord. He's evil. The Night Lords are an evil legion, they are a traitor legion, but he is strong. He wants strength. And he doesn't want it from demons, he doesn't want it from unclean sources. He wants it by his own means, with his own hands. Because in a world, in a galaxy full of victims, they are the predators. And ironically, he would be betrayed by other Night Lords, over the Night Lords, who didn't like the idea of this new blood coming in and changing things. In essence, a true Night Lord was undone by lesser Night Lords, which is very poetic. Granted, I'm making that comparison, I'm the one making poetic, but I like it. And I think to answer what a true Night Lord is, it's someone who's scared. Nostromo is a place filled with crime, and you're a victim. You're either one committing the crime or you're the one being crime committed upon. And growing up like that, in that environment, you feel helpless, you feel powerless, you're a victim. Thus, when you grow up, you want to become strong to make sure that no one can hurt you, so that no one can boss you around, no one can misuse you, no one can mistreat you. And the Night Lords are the personification of that. Most of the Night Lords were evil and criminals, yes, but also most of the Night Lords were children who had been tormented, who had been hunted, who had been betrayed and brutalized. They are children who were victims, and instead of growing up and realizing that the best way to stop becoming a victim is to become one who protects victims, to grow and develop and find strength within yourself and acceptance, they completely bar that off. They wall it up and they say, I will never be a victim again, because I will be the predator here. For Night Lords, there is no middle ground. You're either predator or you're prey. And having been prey, Night Lords never want to be prey again. So a Night Lord wants strength. Strength above all else. The strength to look any foe in the eyes and tell them to fuck off. Because I am a Night Lord, and I will not yield. They will not be controlled by chaos, nor by Emperor, nor by anyone. They don't care about who or what you are. All they care about is being the Lords of Night, the predators in the darkness, the great, strong, and mighty legion. And at the end of the day, each and every one of these characters did that. Gendor Skraivok wanted to be strong, except he didn't care what he did. He didn't matter if he was a victim to one person so long as he could be a victim to multiple people. Talos hated what the Night Lord Legion had become. He wanted them to find some strength and maybe try and rekindle that old noble evil that they were supposed to be, but never ever got a chance to be. And then we have Amunkul. Strength to fight the own fears, Belial his night. For if nightmares sought to claim him, he would become a nightmare far worse than them. That is what the Night Lords are. Men who are afraid and so fearful. And that is what the Night Lords are. People who grew up being victims. But now, above all else, they desire strength to never be victims again. Ironically, the Night Lords are derided as one of the weakest legions, both in terms of physicality as well as mentality. Weak-willed, cowards, no one likes them. And in my opinion, that's because they know that they're weak. But instead of accepting that fact, instead of coming to understanding with it, they just run away from it. They try every other means to become stronger, but they never deal with the core problem. What's inside? To make a salamander reference, they want to become strong. They want to be forged anew, but they are too frightened to step into the crucible, too frightened to be placed upon the anvil and see if they will be broken. So they will just sharpen the edge and sharpen and hone and sharpen and hone and sharpen and hone until the blade is razor thin, perfect for skinning someone. But dare it ever meet strong armor, it will shatter. That is what the Night Lords are. And understanding that, you gain a much better appreciation for them. Or at least I have. But in the end, the Night Lords are a very unique legion. And 40k would not be the same without any Space Marine. And it most definitely would not be the same without the Lords of Night. Because whether you love them or hate them, you gotta admit, in Midnight Cloud they come, the Lords of Night. Bat helms, lightning armor. They do look pretty fucking cool. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for watching. Let me know down below, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Do you guys get a new founding for the Night Lords? Which is your favorite Night Lords character? And yeah, why do you hate the femboy? Because we all hate the femboy. And let's get into that. In which case, I don't know, Krakow, maybe you can be the Demon Daddy next. You ever say something and want to kill yourself afterwards? Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for watching. I want to say a massive thank you to you guys, but even more massive thank you to my awesome members and patrons. Shout out to my Lieutenant tier members, Mr. Eddie V3 and Miss Ventura of the Void. Shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Sean IRL7, Mr. Matthew Merrill, Mr. Sergeant Cossack, 68W173D, and Mr. That Guy. Shout out to my Corporal tier members, Mr. Tremail the Math Kitty, Lord Rosarius, Tech Priest Toaster, Mr. Bowen, Shauna Smithers, The Gentle Salamander, The Wench of Warhammer, Major Doshinect, Edward King, and Mr. Overanalyze This. And finally, but absolutely not least, shout out to my private tier members, Mr. Thomas Moslons, Mr. Ivan_SBW, Mr. Monkey Man, Mr. Michael Ayeda, Mr. Diego Castro, Mr. Portus Unum, Mr. CMD Mr. Eric Massaro, Mr. Dom Marek, Mr. Ken_Sakura333, Mr. Adrian Von Furen, Mr. Morally Bankrupt, Mr. Matthew Peter, Mr. Joshly 1320, Mr. Adrex X1, Mr. Ethan Elam U71, Mr. Kiri Khan, Mr. Malpace-XB1XE, and Mr. Robert Makorovich. Thank you, I love you, I appreciate you guys are amazing. Sign up there with the membership, get a bunch of awesome benefits, behind the scenes stuff, early access to these videos, special member only content, but more importantly, you get to help out your boy. But remember, there's always be free, so whether you give your boy $1 or not, I will love you just the same. Mwah! But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Belly 101, you've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Thank you all so very much for watching. You will sure to say hello there, boys and girls, and I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. I still can't believe there's a canon femboy Night Lord. I really wish there wasn't. Like, you could make him being a bitch-made pussy character without him being a femboy. I hate my life.